thank the member for Fisher. The question is the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Bean.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. I rise to support the motion moved by the member for Eden-Monaro and to commend her for moving this important business. The member for Eden-Monaro has, since she's come to this place last year, been a strong advocate for a modern forestry industry and for the communities that in turn are supported by a strong forestry industry, rightly arguing that it should have been included as part of the National Manufacturing Strategy. We know that it has a critical role to play in relation to housing affordability, with timber shortages having a flow-on effect to the cost of housing around the nation. And we also know that sustainable forestry practices can play a significant role in climate change mitigation and adaptation, Deputy Speaker. Australia's forest industries directly employ 80,000 people and contribute more than $24 billion to the economy every year. Across our region, the industry has gone through significant challenges, with the region's softwood timber industry hit hard by the Black Summer bushfires, with about 40% of the softwood plantations burned. And then, Deputy Speaker, of course, COVID. Nonetheless, despite these challenges, the industry has proven itself in response to bushfires and COVID-19 and found ways to continue operations despite lockdowns and disruptions to timber supply. But as the resolution notes, Australia has a severe timber shortage. A report by the NBA and the Australian Forest Products Association concludes Australia is heading towards a deficit of 250,000 house frames by 2035. The Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment states numerous studies show the need for 400,000 hectares of new plantations over the next decade to meet Australia's demand for timber. To put this in perspective, Australia is facing a timber production shortfall equivalent to the combined land size of Geelong and Newcastle, because we don't have the trees growing in the ground right now to meet that demand. Our timber mills have massively increased production to meet demand during the COVID-induced building boom, as noted by the previous speaker, but across the country we're experiencing severe timber shortages as demand soars and timber imports dry up. Now that some COVID restrictions have eased, you can check for yourself by comparing the current prices in Bunnings with this time last year. Australia's 2 million hectare plantation estate has been declining over the last decade, and it's critical to turn it around. An increase of 400,000 hectares in forestry hub regions will be a tiny fraction of the land devoted to agriculture in Australia. Yet this increase won't only create certainty in the supply for new homes and buildings, but it will create jobs and increase supply of a sustainable building material, a material that stores carbon and fights climate change. Now, Deputy Speaker, the government first promised to expand Australia's timber plantations by 1 billion trees in 2018. 2018 was a great year for this government to make promises. Yet answers to questions in the Senate reveal the concessional loan program set up to help meet the 1 billion trees target is yet to even open, despite the government promising $500 million before the last election. Just as there have been 1,000 days since the government announced they would establish a National Anti-Corruption Commission, 1,000 days have passed on another promise that this government has failed to deliver on. This is a government that plays the shell and pea game without the pea. It's all sizzle and no sausage. Wait for them to attempt to sell the same set of words without follow-up over coming weeks and months. And at the same time, watch them try and blame other parties and jurisdictions for the litany of promises they haven't been able to keep. And the opportunity to implement a national strategy has clearly been there with the National Cabinet. To make up for lost opportunities the last few years, what is now needed is a national level strategy to grow our timber plantation estate, including joint commitments to establish new tree plantings in key strategic timber processing regions to achieve that 1 billion trees goal. We need policy initiatives to expand plantations and farm forestry to develop sovereign capability. We need to invest in the next generation of forestry workers. And we need to recognise the role of sustainable forestry in climate change mitigation. The IPCC has noted that the sustainable forest management strategy aimed at maintaining or increasing forest carbon stocks while producing an annual sustained yield of timber, fibre or energy from the forest will generate the largest sustained mitigation benefit. Sustainable forest industries are part of the solution, not the problem. And Deputy Speaker, we need an Albanese Labor government. I again commend the motion to the chamber.